And welcome back to the Smart Tank Revolution, where we always kick out at 2. I am Mr. Donnie Wonderful, the Benevolent Intelligent, aka Big Time Donnie. We're getting straight to it. Bring the steak out. No appetizers, nothing. We're getting straight to it. I want to encourage everyone to follow Daily Wrestling History. That's Daily Wrestling History, all one word, on Instagram. Whoever runs this page creates these posts where they ask great hypothetical questions. And I just had to turn this mic on and just go on a short or long tangent about one of them. You guys see it in the thumbnail. But out of these three, who wore the Intercontinental title better? You got Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, Razor Ramon. So 1991 to 1995, 4 years. And I believe this is where the Intercontinental Championship became known as the Workhorse Championship, somewhere along 1991, 1992. Now, to go off topic for a second, Joey and I, last November at Rhode Island Comic Con, met the Honky Tonk Man and asked him the exact same question and got an incredible conversation out of it that we'll rehash one day on something. We'll find a reason to talk about it. But let's get back to this. Okay, so 91 to 1995, who wore the IC title better? Visually, let's try to break it down in layers. Visually, just literally like wearing the belt. All three of these men look like champions, and they look like prestige champions. And all three of them, and even two of them together, had matches that stole the show on the card. HBK and Razor, WrestleMania. Oh, wait a minute. Can I say that? Well, everyone talked about the ladder match, but like the opening match was just as good as the ladder match, to be fair. But you know, history tells us that the ladder match was amazing, and it was Shawn Michaels stepping out. So I give both men credit there. Like, this is a really, really interesting question because all three of these wrestlers wore that damn belt pretty damn good. And I honestly believe, rather than it being ranked 1, 2, and 3, it's 1A, 1B, and 1C, because you can make an argument for all of them. Now, I will say 1C, the bottom here is going to be Shawn Michaels. And let me explain why. Not because of, by the way, before anybody says, of course you're going to say Shawn Michaels, you don't like Shawn Michaels. This is when I didn't have a problem with Shawn Michaels. I really didn't have an issue with Shawn Michaels until after the Montreal Screwjob, because I'm such a Bret Hart fan. But the only reason why I would put Shawn Michaels at the bottom tier of it, because his last Intercontinental title reign ended with him just handing the belt over to Dean Douglas, who later lost it to Razor Ramon. But you just hand the belt over. And history tells us that it was 9 Marines that jumped Shawn Michaels, and then later on in life, it was revealed or like rumored to have just been one. I remember that pay-per-view where he handed the belt over. I mean, if 9 guys jumped you, you're gonna look a lot worse. I'm just saying. But that's neither here nor there. But you know, him, will be fair and say, handed the title over due to injury. That's probably the only, and that's legit. That's legit. But to rank these guys and to say who wore it better, like I'm literally nitpicking. But Shawn Michaels, let's begin with the order of the photos here, the thumbnail. Shawn Michaels became the Intercontinental Champion by beating the British Bulldog in 1992, shortly after SummerSlam 92. on like a Saturday night's main event. I remember watching it. And in that title run, the first one, oh, he had a great match with Marty Jannetty, and he had a great. I think that was at the Royal Rumble. He may have lost. He lost it to Jannetty and then won it back from Jannetty. So Shawn Michaels has had 2 or maybe 3 Intercontinental title reigns, but in his complete body of work, having the Intercontinental Championship, I'll say that the sleeper was him and Marty. Those matches were really good, and the chemistry between them, I mean, had to be superb. They were tag teams. They were tag teaming with each other for years. So I give him credit for that. That's a gold star for him. The feud with him and Razor Ramon, with Shawn Michaels being suspended, like really being suspended for, I think it was failing a drug test and refusing to send the belt back to the office, created the inner, as I like to call the champion recess, because he never lost it. So Shawn Michaels was the champion recess, and Razor Ramon was the interim champion, not the lineal. You know, for all my boxing guys, when you're the lineal champion, you beat the champion. So that didn't cultivate until WrestleMania 10, where, all right, cool, it's decided, this ladder match, all right, now Razor's the guy. Classic match. And then they turned around and did it again then at SummerSlam 1995. Shawn Michaels' Intercontinental title run, both as a heel and a babyface. The babyface title run is really where you can tell that they were gearing him up for the big belt. And when it has that type of payoff, maybe he shouldn't be 1C, even though he handed the belt over. Maybe he should be 1B or arguably 1A. I don't know. But that's my thoughts on Shawn Michaels. I'm pretty sure I'm forgetting something in there, because during the feud run with the Clique, with his friends, Diesel was Kevin Nash was the champion too. Then Razor, then Shawn again. Wait a minute. I believe it was the second In Your House. Shawn Michaels versus Jeff Jarrett was a great match, where Shawn reclaimed the IC championship. I think that was his 3rd time. There's tons of high spots in just his Intercontinental title runs. His reigns, I should say, rather. So we'll get back to that as far as how I'm going to rank them, or if I have to make one, if I just have to decide one, but I'm just going to put them in order. And like I said, it's mainly going to be 1A, 1B, and 1C. In the middle, you have the excellence of execution. I'm going to be unbiased here. Bret Hart is my favorite wrestler. I think he's the greatest wrestler to ever lace a pair of boots. One of the reasons why I love CM Punk so much is because he loves Bret as much as I do. But, okay, Bret. Now, Bret has had 2 Intercontinental title reigns. The first one being a classic, the second match at SummerSlam 1991. I remember watching that as a child. Great match with Mr. Perfect. Bret was just recently recognized as a singles wrestler. I don't remember exactly when, but I know it was probably in his 11th or 12th, or even just the full circle of year on which he became wrestling singles and really showing what he can do. Really great fundamentals. I mean, his father was a promoter. You know, he was born into it, so like everything looked great. And I don't think there could have been a better person for him to take the title from than his contemporary at the time, Mr. Perfect. SummerSlam 1991 was a great match. Great Intercontinental match. Phenomenal. They told a great story, and it's classic. It's the ones that if you were an NWA fan or fan of the territories back then, and you shunned the Hollywood like WWF, you watched that match. That match was classic. So that's a gold star for Bret. So from there, his first Intercontinental title run was significantly weaker than his second. The second one is where it had all the climax. And again, even though it was literally like it was a really quick transition from his second IC title run to the big belt. That's what we're going to refer to it as. But damn it, I mean, that second one, there was drama with him losing the first belt to the Mountie, where he had a fever, and the Mountie beat him, but ended up losing the belt a few days later at the Royal Rumble to Roddy Piper, which set up that great match at WrestleMania 8 where he reclaimed the Intercontinental belt. That's a gold star for Bret. Drama upon drama upon drama. The build up to that match, two baby faces. And then we'll just go straight to the end. SummerSlam 1992. The only main event, the only pay-per-view that I'm aware of where the main event was an Intercontinental Championship match with two baby faces. Great match there too. Climatic, as Bret would say, it's the only time where you see him talking because Davey forgot the how the match was laid out, so Bret had to basically walk him through. Oh man. In between that, you got the wrestling challenges matches and the superstar matches. Bret's just great in the ring, no matter what title he's holding, whether he's defending or not. So, but those are going to be the high peaks of his Intercontinental title reigns, plural, I would say. And then we got the bad guy, Razor Ramon. So his first Intercontinental victory was against the model, Rick Martel. And all of this I'm pulling off of memory. So if I'm wrong, this one I know I'm not wrong, because this is when this is back in the VCR era. So like I used to tape Monday Night Raw every Monday. So and I remember my Scotch blank tape. It was one of the first ones I actually purchased with my own money back then. So this was 1993. So the lead up to this one was Razor Ramon, now a babyface, has they competed in a battle royal where the last two were going to wrestle for the vacant IC championship. When Razor Ramon wins in a great match against the model Rick Martel, gold star, like for a Monday Night Raw match, like that was. And I mean, we say it loosely now, but if you watched like the beginning, early years of Monday Night Raw, there was some great wrestling on it. Pay-per-view quality. Only the time slots were shorter because it was just an hour. But literally, that's it. So, I guess that's a diamond in the rough there, because Rick Martel was always a great wrestler, always a great worker. Everything looked great. The way wrestlers were trained back in those days far exceed what we see now, and I don't mean to sound disrespectful from what we see now, but like they're now is a bit more gimmicky, whereas back then they took it way more serious, and it showed in the ring. Those two, I believe, to say you stole the show on Raw, it's not the same as saying that you stole the show on a WrestleMania or another pay-per-view, SummerSlam, or anything like that. But it should be. It really should be. That was the Intercontinental title match for the vacant title, mind you, was the talk of the playgrounds the next day. From there. This, Razor Ramon's title reign, I get the first one really goes hand in hand, or strongly connected with Shawn Michaels, because you have one guy holding the belt, like I said, the champ in recess versus the interim. Like anytime you do things with two belts where they have to become unified, like that's a classic buildup. It works well in boxing. It works well in any sport. So I think those are the things that both Razor and HBK have over Brett, but Brett had the climax in his matches. I think Razor and HBK had the same climax, but it was in the matches as well too. But like the build up was more, ooh, the build up was crazy. So from there, I'm trying to remember. Oh, back and forth with Diesel. Back and forth with Diesel, like the Razor's first IC reign and his second IC reign. Heavily involved quarrels with Shawn and Kevin Nash or Diesel at the time. Really, really great. And I'm using great a lot, but I'm telling you, it really was. Even their house show matches. I remember the old Boston Garden. It hadn't even aired yet that Diesel beat Razor for the Intercontinental belt, but they wind up for the strength of continuity, just rolling with it, and like they played like in Gorilla, they kept switching the music. So first Razor was coming out, then you heard Diesel's music start, then it stopped. And then someone came out and made an announcement. Oh yeah, hey, it hasn't aired yet. So then they had to explain it to us, and that's why Diesel's coming out wearing the Intercontinental belt around his waist. So we saw a great match in 1994 with Diesel and Razor that ended in a disqualification, but it was great. Before we saw the actual title change, and when we saw the title change and the confusion and the corruption there, like that gave what we saw live in Boston greater context. So gold stars there as well. SummerSlam 1994, they went on third. Great match with the late Sweetness. Why can't I remember his name right now? Chicago Bears running back. I'm sorry, his name escapes me. I consider myself a sports guru, but I have so much information in his brain that sometimes things get lost in the shuffle. I was gonna say Gary Payton, but 1994, Walter Payton. 1994 SummerSlam. They went on third. Great finish, great title change, gold star for Razor, and then in 95, the feud with Jeff Jarrett. Jeff Jarrett was always a great worker. Royal Rumble 95 match. Then their return match in WrestleMania 11. And I think that was it for Razor's IC Intercontinental Championship contentions. So, who wore it better? All right. Damn, this is tough because you got to pick one. This is really, 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 really tough. So, after I went through all of that, okay. So, for the sake of classic matches, if we wanted to do classic matches, I'm going to say Bret wore it the best. If we're going to say for trend-setting matches, I'm going to go with Shawn Michaels, meaning, like the ladder matches, even though Razor was in it, like we talk about Shawn. And that really catapulted Shawn. And for booking and feuds, Razor wore it the best. His feuds, included Shawn Michaels, but you had Diesel there, and they were really presented as rivals for that Intercontinental belt, and I think that's what made following the title changes between those three guys even easier. Bret didn't have that. Bret just wrestled guys, and Bret had great matches with the guys that he wrestled, but it wasn't like a spy versus spy thing, or spy versus spy and spy versus spy and his bodyguard, I should say, and interchangeable. And even though, like I said, Shawn Michaels did have that rivalry with Razor, but once it was over, Razor was able to go on and do the same thing with Jeff Jarrett. So I give Razor the nod there because his feuds lasted a while, and back then they were only doing. In Your House was just introduced in '95, but back then you had the 4-5 with King of the Ring, but at that time, but Razor and Jarrett went from. I guess the build up to Royal Rumble 95, and it lasted all the way until March WrestleMania. So you got more life out of that. After HBK didn't have that with Razor after everyone was a babyface. He just, I guess they say, got beat up by 9 guys or 1 guy, depending on who's telling the story. Bret didn't have that either. He didn't have the return match with Kurt Hennig. Mr. Perfect. I think Kurt had a bad back and kind of was more transitioning over to commentary and being a host on the show and being in Ric Flair's corner. They did have another match at King of the Ring, which was just as great as the first one. And then, there was talks about in Bret's book where he had probably the best match of his career with him in Anchorage, Alaska, but there's no footage of that. But for the Intercontinental Championship, there wasn't a feud there. There wasn't a feud. I remember Bret and Macho Man Randy Savage when Randy had the heavyweight title. They tag teamed to do some at house shows, which I always thought was an interesting pair of wrestlers if you consider the way that Randy Savage lays out his matches and how Bret executes his. And their opponents, maybe it was Ric Flair and I don't remember. I can't remember offhand, but yeah, Bret didn't have the ongoing feuds. It was just mainly on to the next opponent. Great match, but on to the next opponent. So you know what? Actually, considering all of that, I'm just going to be fair to myself and say Razor Ramon. Razor Ramon wore it the best. There's different categories to this in which I can give all 3 guys a unanimous victory over the other 2. But just to answer that general question, I want to say that Razor wore it the best. And again, when I first saw it, like I said, there's 1A, 1B, and 1C. And I'm going to go back over this and listen to it and see if I still feel the same way a day or 2 from now. So I want to thank you guys for listening to my rant. I hope you all enjoyed this little trip for me down memory lane in Nostalgiaville. And if you feel differently or have some disputes or anything to add, please feel free to interact with us in the comments section, and we'll gladly address them and, follow up with you, our loyal supporters and listeners. This is Donnie Wonderful, signing off to the next one.